Thank you for joining us in this session. We're going to talk about customer service, and so if that's what you want to hear about, you're in the right place. We are passionate about customer service, and we have some really exciting innovations that we're working on. We're going to talk to you. First of all, I'm joined by Hemant Raj, my counterpart in R&D. And so this is an IT pro audience, and so we're really going to focus mostly on Hemant and the ability to show you some demos, to talk through sort of where we're going in the roadmap, to show you some examples of product functionality that is soon to be released. And we'll intersperse that with some stories about how our customers are really benefiting from customer service and how they're using the technology. We'll try to leave a little bit of time at the end to answer any questions that you may have. So just to sort of start and level set, what we're really focused on is how do we identify who our core audiences are, and how do we support those audiences. And so it starts with always the end customer. How do we create and earn loyalty? How do we make effortless experiences for our customers? Then we think about our employees, and how do we create an environment where our employees can really succeed at delivering the customer service that is expected of them. And we'll talk a little bit about how those expectations are higher and it's more difficult to deliver this customer service, and how we can empower that with the technology that we're delivering. And then finally, staying agile, the ability to provide insights for the agents, for customers even, for supervisors and for business leaders to really understand how the customer service systems are performing, how the customer engagement experience is performing, and then quickly sort of support and adapt to that with SaaS technology that really allows us to be nimble and sort of going from no code, low code to access to developer environments. And so let's start by just talking about sort of how we envision sort of the customer service journey and the steps along the way, and sort of how we support that. And of course, it starts with omni-channel. And so, you know, anytime you talk about customer engagement, you're talking about always new channels. I think about my children, and my son actually doesn't read email anymore. So I get an email from his school, and I have to take a picture of that and then send it as a Snapchat to him so that he knows when his sports practice is, because he would never read an email. So figuring out how we support all of these new channels, and I'm sure that it's going to be something new within the next 24 months. How do we support these channels? Self-service and communities. So really designing an environment that allows us to create self-service experiences that not only provide sort of that anonymous customer experience where you come in, you have a query, you find a good knowledge article, but how do you create environments where you can create B2B scenarios, where you can log in and you can really have transparency about how you're doing business with your customers, and provide that transparency back to the customers and really sort of empower action there. And then agent enablement. You know, this is really about creating an environment where agents can be their most successful. And you know, maybe an old cliche, but you're only as strong as your weakest link. And so you have different levels of agent experience and skill sets. And so how do you design a system that empowers those agents that are super experienced, and also empowers them to be sort of communicate in their terms, and then also guides a new agent so that they can be as good and successful as that tenured agent, creating a consistent level of service. And then knowledge. How do we create a single source of knowledge? How do we ensure that all of these knowledge points that are coming in through external channels, through social media, through communities, as well as knowledge articles or information that the company may have as part of the company knowledge resources, and how do you identify those knowledge articles and then serve them up to customers as customers need them to consume them in a way that answers their questions, and serve them up to agents in a way that agents can be more successful supporting the customers they're talking to. And then finally, service intelligence. So this is really about sort of how do we make sure that the service, that we're providing a three-dimensional view of how agents are understanding the information, how customers themselves are understanding how they're receiving information, and again, supervisors, the business itself. So, and then the other piece of this is really sort of thinking about AI and artificial intelligence, and how do we start thinking about next best action? How do we start really taking in the information that we have, synthesizing that information into what's important to the conversation, what's important to the interaction, and being able to act on that. And we'll talk a little bit about that. It's pretty exciting. So it starts, though, with the fact that Dynamics 365 is really designed to be a single platform that allows you to bring together all of the business applications that you need to run your business. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a customer example, and how just because you're a customer service organization doesn't mean that you should be siloed or separated from sales or field service or any other application. You may be a customer service agent, and you may want to you may not be able to resolve the issue over the phone, and so you need to schedule an on-site visit. So how do you seamlessly schedule that on-site visit and send a technician to make the repair? And then really sort of taking the next step, which is it's not just about the applications working together, but it's about access to the productivity suite. It's about being able to gain access to the power that we have with Azure IoT and Cortana Intelligence and the Azure Data Lake, so that you can really sort of take advantage of all of this power that is available to you, and then bring that into your business application. And then also being able to create extensibility experiences, so extending through Power Apps and Flow, being able to extend through the Common Data Service, and then being able to work through purpose-built applications that our partners are creating with access to those on AppSource. And so if you haven't been to AppSource, go to microsoft.appsource.com, and you'll find an incredible amount of information about how third parties are creating industry-specific solutions that support the Dynamics customer experience. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Hemant to talk about the product strategy.
Thanks, Matt. Let's spend a few minutes talking about the product strategy for customer service by Microsoft Dynamics 365. So what we see on the slide are three core pillars of customer service investment strategy that we have. The first one is omni-channel engagement. The idea over here is as the number of support channels wherein customers can seek support through support organizations is increasing on a daily basis, and how we can enable customers to seek support across all of these channels, how we can provide a cohesive view when it comes to agents across all of the channel interactions, how can we preserve context as the customer moves from one channel to other, how we can manage scenarios around channel escalation or channel transitions, make sure that the channel that is presented to the customer is most optimized based on the preferences of the customer, and so on. So all those scenarios fall into this category around omni-channel engagement. The next one, agent experience. So as we have a large number of channels, it's important that the agent experience is very optimized so that the agent is most productive when the agent is providing support to customers. And it's important to have a unified view or a customer 360-degree view presented to the agent whenever the agent is interacting with the customer or working on any issue, so that the agent gets a complete picture of what the customer interaction has been across multiple channels, and also an optimized view. We also want to talk about some of the backend integrations when it comes to agent experience. Traditionally, and even in the current time frame, the typical call center applications or contact centers would have multiple line of business applications. So how we can make the product talk to different backend LOB applications and make sure that the agent is productive, the agent doesn't have to go back and forth multiple times between the Dynamics application and other LOB applications, and handle agent productivity from that standpoint as well. The last one, insights across channels. This is more around the intelligent service functional area that Matt also talked about. Over here, you will see some of the investments leveraging AI capabilities powered by Microsoft. For example, Azure machine learning, cognitive services, and so on. Even bot framework, how we can leverage bot framework in order to both assist the customer as well as the agent is something that we look at from this investment category. The left side presents a different sort of a view. We have the support channels ranging from different high touch to low touch channel types. We also want to take a look at the omni-channel engagement and routing layer, how it needs to work across different channels in a unified way and not in a siloed way. Agent experience, supervisor experience, the field service or the dispatch or the field technician experience is something that is also important. And then we have the core customer service management layer, which essentially talks about the core case management, knowledge, surveys, entitlements, the typical core customer service capabilities powered by an intelligent customer engagement platform. So this just gives you an idea around how we are aligned, the different customer service pillars that we have in our mind when we think about the investment strategy for customer service. With this, let's jump into the key capabilities, some of the key capabilities around customer service that we provide. And Matt will talk about some of the key capabilities and also highlight how some of the important customers are using these capabilities as customer references. And let's proceed with that. Before Matt talks about some of these capabilities, let's start with a quick demo. So to begin with, let's take a look at the omni-channel demos, and we'll start with the web channel or the portal that we provide as a part of the self-service support offering. So we provide a portal which enables support over web channel, and as a part of Dynamics 365, every organization can have a web portal. And there are different types or different flavors of portal that we make available. We have a customer support portal, we have a community portal, we have employee self-service portal, and so on. So in this case, what you're looking at is a community portal. As a customer, I can go ahead and browse through the portal. I can go ahead and log on to the portal. And if I log on, the first screen that I see is the most popular content across articles, forums, also the content that I have subscribed to. I can also search for knowledge base, and these knowledge articles are sitting within the Dynamics 365 application and are fetched from there. And the knowledge articles that I could look for on the web channel or across all the channels would be based on the content access level that as a customer I would have. So the set of articles could be different for an anonymous customer browsing through the knowledge base on a web channel as compared to a logged on customer on the portal. So it's possible to have that kind of a setup in place. I can also go and manage my cases while on the web portal. I can provide more information on existing cases or even create a new case. And one thing that I would like to highlight over here is, as a customer, if I, let's say, have an issue, and if I want to submit a new case, before the system would go ahead and create a new case, the system would suggest relevant information based on the information that I would type in. And this would not just come through the knowledge articles, it would also search across different community forums, blogs, or ideas as well. And this is a good way to ensure if there is a chance of case deflection, and if the issue gets resolved right away without the customer having to submit a case. So that's taken care of from that perspective. The customer can also browse through forums, and forums is a great way to enable peer-to-peer community support. As a customer, I can go ahead and browse through forum threads, create a new thread, or contribute to existing forum threads. And one important thing that I want to highlight over here as a part of the omni-channel strategy, the channels that we talk about, for example, in this case, the web channel, are all tied to CRM or Dynamics 365 business processes. So as an example, we can go ahead and create a simple business process which could look at forum threads. And if any forum thread has not been answered for a while, we could go ahead and translate that or create a new case within the Dynamics 365 application. So if the peer-to-peer community is not effective in resolving a customer's issue, the support organization or the agents can step in and help the customer. So as an example, we have this case, we have this forum thread around issues with smart TV, and there are no responses, and this issue still is unaddressed. Another example that we have is we can look at information on the web channel or any other channel and fill in knowledge gaps. So if I could simply create a business process which will look at all the forum threads, and any forum thread which has been resolved or which has been answered, I could create a business process flow to create a knowledge article automatically in proposed state, which the content team can pick it up in the Dynamics 365 application. So those are like very simple examples of how business processes can be leveraged when it comes to integrating different channels along with the Dynamics 365 application, and how the support experience can be enhanced. With this, let's go back to the presentation, and I'll let Matt talk about some of the key capabilities now.
So let's start with looking at how Amway. So Amway sells health and beauty and home products, and the way they sell is they have what are called Amway independent professionals. And so what they need to do is they need to be able to create training experiences for these professionals. They need to be able to consolidate all of the information on existing products and new products. In the case of Amway, they had 30 different systems that they were supporting. And so what they needed to do was take all of these 30 systems and create a single interface. And so the way they did that was they brought them together through the Dynamics customer service solution using Unified Service Desk, and you'll see more about Unified Service Desk. But then what that did was it meant that now when the independent professionals wanted to see information, they had the same information that the Amway corporate had, so that they could go in, they could create a case, as you saw Hemet show, they could get knowledge articles, they could do training. At the same time, if they actually needed to call in to get support on anything, it was a personalized experience, so that the support staff at Amway is able to understand exactly what this particular person has gone through, what their issues are, where they've been on the portal, and really provide sort of this personal experience. And so in the case of Amway, it's really been a transformation for them. The other thing is that they operate in multiple countries. They're a global organization, so they're able to create a portal experience that is consistent, and then replicate it for each of the geographies. And then now what we'll do is we'll move into sort of the next area that we're going to talk about in the presentation, and that's really social care. And so, when we think about social care, we think about all of the different social channels that are coming in, and then how do you become responsive to those social channels? How do you ensure that you're delivering the level of speed and responsiveness? How do you ensure that you're answering those questions in the right way? If it's a Twitter message that comes in about a bank account, then how do you make sure that you understand that is a bank account issue that should be supported by customer service, and then make the recommendation to take it to a different channel, a one-to-one channel instead of a one-to-many channel. And then the other thing is really being able to use analytics to understand and identify what kind of questions are coming in, and how to make sure that those questions or comments are directed in the right place, that there's we understand the sentiment. So is this an issue, or is this a positive comment? And then we're able to route it to an agent and actually create a case around a question that came in through social. And so, with that, I'll hand it back to Hemant.
Let's take a look at the social capabilities that we have when it comes to providing support. We'll take a look at the Microsoft Social Engagement functionality that we provide as a part of Dynamics 365. And this is something that can be used to monitor what customers are saying about your product or your service offering on different social channels. And let me go to the Social Center view. And the Social Center view provides a stream-based view for the community manager or the person who is monitoring what people are saying on different social channels. And each of these streams can be set up very easily in like few minutes. And these streams can be based on different social channels like Facebook, Twitter, and so on. Or they could be based on keywords across different channels. And we provide a lot of flexibility on how these can be set up. The important thing that I want to talk about while on this, while over here is, if I take a look at any specific information or any specific post, we have intelligence capabilities over here. So we have integration with Azure Machine Learning, which will take a look at all posts and do an automatic intention tagging. So it will tag every post with the intention. And in this case, let's say the customer was complaining about it. So the tag called complaint automatically got associated with this post. And the person who is looking at it can also provide feedback to the machine learning model, whether this post was tagged correctly or not, or the person can also provide or add additional tags. And the model will learn based on the feedback that's provided. Any additional tags that are provided, the system will start using those tags and start applying those to subsequent set of posts. And I can also go ahead and link this to Dynamics 365 and create a case out of it manually. And while I can do that manually, it's also possible to automate this specific step. I can simply go to automation rules and create a new automation rule, which will look at different properties of the posts and create cases in Dynamics 365. So as an example, I could leverage the intention tag and look at all the posts which have a complaint or information request or a support request kind of a tag, and convert those to cases inside Dynamics 365. And as an example, I can also create a rule which will look at all posts that have a purchase intent to create a lead inside Dynamics 365 for the sales team to pick it up. So that's a quick example, and it's very easy to set the social engagement application up. It can just be done in few minutes, and even the automation rules can be quickly set up. With this, we'll hand it back to Matt, and that's a very short demo of how the social engagement tool can be used and can be explored further.
So in this case, we'll use Virgin Atlantic Airlines as the example of how they really sort of took the need to be responsive and proactive about social, and really, allowed that to be a driving force in how they created better customer experiences. And so, one of the things that happens with an airline, obviously, is that there are constantly there's feedback, right? Sometimes it's good feedback, but usually it's feedback about something that's not going right.
Quick question.
Sure.
Do you enable social listening for older versions, like 2015? It comes up with a message box that says you're sharing information with the social listening site. Do you know exactly what information that is that's being shared?
So the question was on 2015, there's an alert that says that there's information being shared with the social listening site, and what is being shared. And so I don't have the answer to that, but let's take it offline and get you the answer. And so with Virgin, where they come in is that they want to be able to handle all of the new social channels that are coming in. They also want to be able to be proactive. They want to be able to talk about flight delays in advance. They want to be able to share information with their flyers and with their customers as it's necessary to really address those true customer issues that only social sort of opens up. It also gives them a chance to be responsive 24/7. So they don't have to limit their social responses to just business hours. They're able to really provide a 24/7 customer service experience there, and that's really been a important step towards them sort of creating better customer experiences, which is what they're really passionate about. And so the next thing that we're going to do is now shift into the case management, and how do we really sort of design and support around case management. And the first thing that I want to sort of look at is that 84% of customers use self-service to answer their questions. And so what we're finding is two things. Number one, self-service has to be good because that's where people are going first. And we want to even go to the point where we're allowing people to answer more complex questions through self-service. But what that also means is that when the customer gets to a assisted service engagement, it's harder questions. And so what we've seen is that, this is interesting, since 2009, there's been a 12% decrease in first call resolution. And so that really sort of highlights how important it is for the customer service agent to be able to access the right information, to have a single pane of glass where they can get all of the insights, where they can get the right guidance, where they understand the history of that customer and how to best serve that customer. And so, what we're seeing is it's getting harder, not easier, and so we have to turn that around. And then finally, this one, there's a 29% annual agent turnover rate. So we think of that in two ways. One is, first of all, how do you make sure that when that agent is new, they have the ability to deliver the same level of customer service that the tenured agents have. And then the other is, how do you create a great onboarding experience? Because we know that agents are going to be turning over. How do we make sure that it's a fast and efficient and effective onboarding experience? And finally, how do we keep agents longer? How do we create environments that give agents the ability to feel good about the work they're doing and be more successful and want to stay longer in their roles? So with that, I'll let Hemant go into some detail there.
Let's now take a look at some of the agent and supervisor experiences in the application. And we'll take a look at the Interactive Service Hub, as most of you would already know, which is a role-tailored experience provided for agent and supervisors or different support personas. And we are looking at the agent dashboard that we provide, which provides a very stream-based view. So typically an agent would have to deal with volumes of data and they would typically be assigned to different streams or queues that they would have to work on. So it's possible to set up a stream-based view for the tier 1 or the agent persona to look at, as compared to a supervisor kind of a dashboard, which is more of an aggregated dashboard, wherein we present a single stream and provide different visualizations that the supervisor can leverage to quickly take a look at how the trend has been over the specific period, or which has been selected over here. And I can also go ahead and do additional operations over here. I can change the time filter on either of the dashboards to look at information in a specific time duration. We also see a card-based view and some colors that show up. So these colors, I believe, are showing up based on the origin of the case. It can be modified. You can have colors show up based on the case priority or the type of customer and so on. And the card-based view will show snippets of information which are of most importance to the agent or the supervisor, just so that the agent or the supervisor can know what the case is about just by looking at the dashboard itself. It's also possible to apply visual filtering. So as an agent, if I want to look at cases that got created from communities, I can simply click on any of the chart elements and that would filter the entire dashboard over here. I can also do advanced filtering over here. So if I want to further look at escalated cases, I can even apply the second filter. And let's say if we go ahead and open up this case and issues with smart TV. So this was the case that got generated from the forum thread that we saw in the first demo. So this is the case UI, the case form, and we have the customer information showing up on the left side of this case form. We have SLAs, SLA timers show up, first response and resolve in, which is a good way to track support KPIs. In how much time should a specific case be resolved, or how much time does the agent have to respond to the customer. And this is something that can be configured easily, and the times can vary based on different properties of the case. Could be based on priority of the case or the type of customer or the case origin. And this was the case that got originated from the community forum thread, and that's why it is stamped as community. If I look at the details, we also see the forum information over here. So the agent can simply click this URL and navigate to the actual forum thread to get more context. The timeline view shows all the customer interactions, the notes taken by different agents on the case UI. And typically the agent, while working on an issue, would have to go through all of this information. And what we have done is we have leveraged some Azure machine learning capabilities to help the agent be more productive. So if, as an agent, I need to look for knowledge articles, the system will go ahead and look at the entire timeline. The system will look at all the interactions that have happened in the context of this case, all the notes that were taken in the context of this case, and do a keyword extraction and apply machine learning to look at the most relevant content and then do a knowledge search. So the agent doesn't have to go through all the timeline, look at all the interactions, figure out what's the most relevant point that was being made across interactions or nodes. The system will do it for the agent and bring out the most relevant knowledge article. And this is something that can be leveraged even while searching for similar cases and not just knowledge articles. And we provide a lot of flexibility in how this intelligent knowledge search can be set up. While this works out of the box on associated activities, interactions, or nodes, it can be extended to work on any custom entities or custom information which is tied to a case. As an example, let's say if there is an asset tied to a case record, an asset has some information. You can even have the intelligent knowledge search enabled so that it picks up the asset content and do a keyword extraction based on the content obtained from the asset information as well. So with this, I'll hand it back to Matt, and that's a quick overview of how we have Interactive Service Hub, which is providing agent experience and supervisor experience.
So So here I'll talk about Helsana. Helsana is the largest health and accident insurance provider in Switzerland. And so what they really were struggling with was they had siloed systems. And so they had a different system for sales, for service, for marketing. They weren't able to bring together any of the information that they needed in order to have a holistic, complete customer view. And so what they really wanted to do was take all of the information that was coming in from these different silos. They had sort of started by developing point solutions for each of the organizations and bring them into a single view. For the perspective of their customers, this was allowed for the customer engagement to happen on a service perspective where they understood the entire sort of spectrum of what was happening with that customer. They were also able to handle any customer issues and update that single customer record so that in the field, when the salespeople were working with the customers, they were able to know exactly what may have happened. They were also able to anticipate the kinds of issues that these customers were experiencing, and thereby present specialty services and offers that could help the customer, be more effective and have a better experience as an insuree. So they were really able to change their customer experience by bringing together all of the information that they had and then making a seamless experience for the employees between customer service and sales. And the next area that we'll go into is knowledge and voice of the customer. And so when we think about knowledge, this is the holy grail. This is the place where if you have silos of knowledge, then you really sort of lose the ability to create a consistent experience for your customers, and you lose the ability for your support staff to be able to answer questions in a reliable way. And so what we've done with the knowledge is really created a unified knowledge base. We've created the ability to have simple management of that knowledge so that you can capture knowledge from external sources, so that you can publish knowledge, so that if an agent is in the process of responding to an issue and they didn't find a knowledge article about that, they can publish their notes, and then those notes can be turned into a knowledge article. And then providing reports. So really understanding, what knowledge is working, what kinds of articles are working, and how do we make sure that we take the best knowledge articles and the most effective knowledge articles and learn from them, as well as surface those to the top so that we can create more successful outcomes with less effort. Now we'll hand it back over to Hemant.
Let's quickly take a look at the knowledge management functionality that we have. So we provide enterprise-level knowledge management capabilities with Dynamics 365, and this is the knowledge articles view inside Dynamics. So if I, let's say, open up a published article, we have rich content authoring capabilities. As a knowledge article, I can embed videos, images. I can even do advanced HTML authoring of the knowledge content. Okay, let's go back. And the keywords and the title of the knowledge article are helpful when a knowledge search is being done. We have a timeline view also available along with knowledge articles, which gives a view of what actions were taken in the context of a knowledge article, how the knowledge article progressed through the life cycle. And we also have support for business processes, and we have out-of-the-box business processes for knowledge management. And we ship multiple business processes based on the state of the article. So if the article is in proposed state, the business process that would see would be different as compared to an article which could be published. And it's also possible to schedule when an article would be published, to schedule when an article would get auto-expired, and so on. We also have support for versioning of articles. We have support for translations and provide a lot of flexibility around that. And as I mentioned, we also have content access levels. So you can have content access levels tied to different customers and assigned to knowledge articles. And based on the access level, the knowledge article would surface to the end customer across any of the channel. And we also provide an analytics view to monitor how the knowledge article is being consumed across different channels, across different locations, and so on. Let's quickly take a look at the voice of the customer functionality that we provide. How many of you know about voice of the customer? Okay, quite a few, that's good. So voice of the customer is a feedback management capability that we provide with Dynamics. And this is one of the differentiators that we have. So you are able to, when it comes to capturing or obtaining feedback from customers, you can set up surveys within Dynamics. You can send out survey invitations and even consume or look at survey responses within Dynamics. So you won't have to go outside of the Dynamics application to do any of these things. And we provide a lot of flexibility on how things can be automated. So I can write a simple workflow or a business rule that could send out a survey invitation link to get feedback as soon as a case gets resolved. So let's say in this case, there was a workflow which got triggered when the case got resolved, and the customer got a survey invitation link asking to provide feedback. So the customer can simply click on this URL, which will take the customer through the survey. And a few things that I want to talk about, the theme of the survey, the logo, what appears as the title, the footer elements, all can be configured very easily when the surveys are being created. And this also provides capability to embed information from Dynamics CRM. It could be the name of the customer, the case number, or the name of the agent who handled the case, and so on. And all these elements can be embedded anywhere within the survey. So the customer can click on next, go to the next page, quickly fill in the survey, provide feedback. And we offer multiple types of questions that can form a survey, starting from simple text or numeric questions to advanced grid of ratings or fixed sum or even NPS type of questions that are supported. As an example, let's take a look at this Net Promoter Score question. And if I select a score of 6 or below, the system will ask me to provide a reason why I'm giving a low score. So this kind of an automation or a rule can also be written as a part of survey. While this is a very basic, simple rule, the rules can go as complex as possible. You can look at answers to different questions that have been provided within the survey. You can, based on those answers that were provided, you can show or hide different questions, different sections, skip to a specific page, and so on. So it provides a lot of flexibility. And when the customer submits the survey response, it gets captured in Dynamics. And there are various ways in which the survey responses can be consumed within Dynamics. As an example, let's open up this case and navigate to the survey responses. And this was the survey response given by the customer. The response summary will get captured over here. The response that were given as is by the customer gets shown. I could also write rules. Oops. I could also write rules in order to look at the aggregated response elements. So in this case, what we did was we created a custom SLA KPI, which will look at the customer satisfaction score whenever a response gets tracked in the context of a case. And if the customer satisfaction score was higher than a certain value, we mark the KPI as succeeded. If it is lower than a certain value, we mark the KPI as violated. We create a follow-up task to talk to the customer, what went wrong, why the customer satisfaction score was low. Just an example of how survey response results can be consumed. This is just one example wherein we integrated that with SLAs. You can have other sorts of rules or actions configured as well based on survey responses. Yep, I think that's as far as VOC was concerned. Let's move back to the presentation and talk about a few more elements. Matt, back to you.
Yep. So now we'll just sort of wrap this section up with a little story about IF P&C. So IF is an insurer in the Nordic and Baltic regions. They have 3.5 million customers, and so one of the things that they were challenged with was the fact that they had acquired and brought together 4 different companies. And so, again, they had all of this siloed data. And so with their goal of being the most customer-centric insurance provider in the Baltic region, what they really wanted to do was make sure that they were empowering their agents with the right information about how to serve their customers. So they really sort of set on a path of creating a knowledge transformation and taking all of the knowledge from these separate silos and being able to access that knowledge across all of their regions and across all of their customer service centers. And so that was really, in the case of IF P&C, it was really based on understanding, how they could better serve their customers by providing better knowledge to their agents to answer the questions that were coming in, and they really saw a huge turnaround there. So in conclusion, for sort of what we've just gone through, we've taken a look at how we engage the omni-channel. Hemet's going to talk a little bit more about how we engage the omni-channel, talking about some of what we're about to deliver and where we're headed from a product strategy and roadmap perspective. We talked about self-service and community, and the ability not only to create these self-service environments, but also to make sure that they're branded specifically to the customer brand. And then enabling agents. We sort of we could spend 75 minutes easily on just the case management and agent piece. So gave you a good sort of overview there. Talked about knowledge, and then of course how all of this information gets presented through dashboards and analytics.
Let's take a look at some of the new capabilities that we have as a part of customer service. Okay, starting with Unified Service Desk. As I think all of you would know, Unified Service Desk is a desktop application that we provide as a part of the Dynamics 365 offering, and it can be used to tie Dynamics with different LOB applications. It provides agent productivity, it enhances agent productivity, and can be used in different call center or contact center deployments. So we have made enhancements in Unified Service Desk, and one of the core value prop, as I mentioned, is for the contact center agents to be most productive in their environments. And what in the investments that we have done around accessibility is so that we enable differently able people to be most productive when they are using the application. So in terms of accessibility enhancements, we have made investments around keyboard accessibility, how the tab behavior would work, inline navigation, shortcut to UI controls, enable or collapse panels, and so on and so forth. We also have enabled JAWS support to read the Unified Service Desk interface. With respect to reliability and performance, again, some of the key KPIs, average handling time, customer satisfaction, which are typically universally measured across all of the call centers or contact centers. And any impediment to agents' productivity would straight away hamper the core KPIs or the core metrics. So reliability and performance is an important angle from a USD perspective, and we have made some investments based on the feedback we have obtained from customers on this area as well. So one of the investments is to prefetch page data. So the page data can be loaded asynchronously before the UI shows up, And this provides performance enhancements. There would be minimum wait time, the create entity action, wherein there was a lot of pain point that we heard from the customers can now be optimized, and the page load time or the controls would load up pretty fast when it comes to the UI performance. Also, investments around the safe dispatcher API to monitor USD errors and crash scenarios would benefit from a reliability perspective. Some of the investments around improving diagnostics of unified service desk, we have improved crash management. We now do automatic memory dumps whenever there is any error or crashes, and error reports can be generated on demand as well. We also have enhanced the debugger, and some of the actions can be taken on the fly around controls using the enhanced debugger or the debugger enhancements that we have made. So all these capabilities are available publicly. I mean, if you want, you can go to the USD website or the support website for Dynamics 365 and take a look at some of the details around USD enhancements that have come up recently. I also wanted to take like few minutes to talk about the web portal enhancements, since that's an important channel when it comes to the omni-channel strategy for Dynamics 365 customer service. With respect to customer tracking, which is in preview, it is possible to funnel your customer interaction data from the portal to Dynamics 365 customer intelligence to generate a 360-degree view of the customer. We've also made a one-time source code release of the portal, which can be used to enable portal in on-prem deployments or have more customizations which are specific to different businesses. Enhanced knowledge. So we have enhanced knowledge management functionality in the context of the web channel or the portal to display notes and include attachments as well. And the metadata of these elements can also be searched for as a part of the knowledge articles. We also have an administrative wizard, and it's very easy to publish an entity on the portal now. We have a wizard kind of an experience. You just answer a few questions, and the custom entity can be made available on the web channel. Availability in German sovereign cloud and UK, and single sign-on configuration. So we leverage Azure AD-B2C for enabling single sign-on configuration for the web channel. So these were some of the web portal enhancements that I just wanted to talk about. Let's go to the next one. So this talks about the enhancements that were done in the Live Assist capability. So we all know that we have partnered with CafeX for chat and co-browse capability as a part of the omni-channel strategy. And this slide talks about some of the enhancements that were done in the Live Assist capability. So we have enhanced agent experience, made investments in agent productivity, provided shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts in the agent widget for better visibility and productivity of the agent. The agent can now see the customer typing indicator with the new enhancements that we have made. And we also have audio and visual notifications for the agent for unread messages. Customer 360-degree view, investments or improvements have been made in the way chat context renders for an agent. So the agent now gets a better sense of the customer 360-degree view when the agent would accept a chat session. The other thing is mobile app integration. So we now have a mobile SDK that's provided, which can be used to enable chat in a mobile device. It can be, the SDK can be used to integrate with your own mobile applications. And using this, the entire live chat, co-browse, remote form filling experience can be enabled on a mobile application. And at this point, we have support for iOS and Android-based mobile application devices that have the mobile applications running on them. The last one is bot-driven engagement. So as a part of the chatbot strategy, we rely on the Microsoft bot framework for any chat bot investments. And some of the enhancements that have been done as a part of Live Assist around enabling two specific chatbot scenarios. The first one is for customers or organizations who want to leverage Live Assist for the end user experience when it comes to enabling chat on any web channel. It could be the Dynamics web portal as well. And they can leverage chatbot using the APIs that we provide in order to enable chat escalation scenarios. So the customer can start a chat from a web channel, and the end user experience would be powered by Live Assist, and the customer would first be routed through a chatbot, and let's say in case the customer is not satisfied with the bot experience, the bot could seamlessly escalate to a live agent who is again sitting within Dynamics leveraging the Live Assist application. And this scenario enables supervisor experience scenarios as well. The live chat between the bot and the agent can also be monitored by the supervisor. The escalation can be automated as well as made to happen on demand as well. The other scenario is a different one. In this case, customers who have their own custom channels, it could be channels like Facebook Messenger and so on, in order to provide support. So they can leverage the Microsoft Bot Framework in order to integrate with Live Assist APIs. So if there is a need to escalate a bot interaction, it can be escalated to an agent who is sitting within Live Assist within the Dynamics application. So that's another scenario that's enabled, and APIs in order to enable both of these scenarios have been made available with the Live Assist enhancements. With this, let's quickly take a look at one of the demos that we have. We'll take a look at the second scenario, wherein we'll start with a custom channel, Facebook Messenger in this case, and see how the chat escalates to a Live Assist agent. Okay. So this is number 8. Okay. So we have a customer, in this case Charles, who is facing an issue with one of the televisions he purchased from Contoso Electronics, and he searches for the name of the company on Facebook Messenger and starts interacting. And the chatbot that's deployed based on the Microsoft Bot Framework will come into picture and start interacting with the customer in this case. So let's say the customer just mentions that he has a problem, and the bot has been tuned to get to the specifics of the issue. So if the customer responds back vaguely, the bot will try to redirect the customer to the specifics of the issue. So in this case, the bot wants to know what device the customer is having an issue with. So I can go ahead and scan the barcode and take a picture, and we have integration with barcode scanning APIs in this demo, which will extract the barcode, look up the asset information, and get the product information which the customer is using. And I could also type in the name of the product. Let's say the customer has display issues with this television. So again, as I mentioned, so what the bot will do, it will look for the knowledge repository which is sitting within Dynamics and search for knowledge articles. But before it can do that, it needs to get to the specific of the issue so that the relevant knowledge articles can be surfaced. Okay, let's see, we have a black lines issue. So what the bot will do is it will get all the information based on the interaction, do a keyword extraction, and look for knowledge articles in Dynamics 365 and show them to the end user in this case. And the way the knowledge articles are shown is very optimized based on the device, and the customer can quickly take a look at the knowledge articles that are presented and select to read any of these knowledge articles. And the bot will present the content of the knowledge article in a readable way. It will break it into different readable snippets so that it's easy for the customer to go through that. So let's say the customer goes through the first knowledge article that was presented and does not find the article useful. So the bot will try to look for more articles, and let's say the customer just wants to speak to an agent. So there are various ways in which the bot would detect that the customer is not satisfied. It could be based on the feedback given on different knowledge articles, depending upon how we have trained the bot to handle escalation scenarios. So in this case, the customer straight away tells the bot that he or she wants to talk to an agent directly. So the bot would go ahead, create a case inside Dynamics, and also connect the customer to a live agent sitting in Unified Service Desk. So let's switch to Dynamics. So this is the agent sitting within Unified Service Desk. The agent has logged on to the chat widget that we see on the right side. And this is the chat session that just got created from the escalation. So the agent would be able to get the entire chat history, the entire interaction that went on between the customer and the bot on the right side. And the customer can continue sending messages. So this is how the customer side of things would look like. So the customer would be told that he or she is now chatting with an actual agent and can start conversing. Okay, let's say the customer just mentions the issue details and sends it. And if you go back to USD, the chat would come in through. So this is an escalation scenario. Typically, we would see more of a case deflection scenario wherein a bot is able to assist the customer and end the conversation. So this was an example of an escalation scenario. The bot tries to assist the customer but is not able to do it. So the bot goes ahead and escalates the conversation to a live agent. And the live agent can go ahead and do additional operations, search for knowledge articles, transfer the chat, and so on. So this was an example of bot-driven customer engagement and an escalation scenario. Let's go back to the presentation now and take a look at some of the other new content. The next thing that I want to quickly talk about is the Customer Service Hub application. So this is the evolution of Interactive Service Hub client that we saw in the demo previously and that most of you would already be aware of. And this is a new application which is built on the Unified Interface Stack. So Unified Interface Stack is a new framework that provides a very consistent and accessible experience for Dynamics 365. It has reimagined controls, new user experience patterns. It is compatible across devices. It reflows into the available space as it has a very responsive UI. And it also provides a library of different framework elements which can be used for building applications. I won't go into the details of Unified Interface because there is a separate dedicated session just to talk about Unified Interface by Linda. And for those of you interested can take a look at that. I'll talk about the customer service side of things, the CSH app, the Customer Service Hub app, which will come up. And the CSH app, again, will be accessible because it is based off of the Unified Interface Stack. And one thing that will be beneficial with this app is there won't be any metadata download issues anymore. So with the ISH app, the ISH client, Interactive Service Hub, we got feedback that the metadata download time can be significant sometimes. So that issue will be fixed. It will be possible to enable any other unified interface enable entity and show up in the customer service hub application. So any non-service entity or custom entity can also be shown in the customer service hub application. And the goal is to make available all the runtime agent experience scenarios in the customer service hub app when it comes out. And this is something that's already in preview as of now. Let's see if we can quickly take a look at some of the enhancements that have happened with this application. Switch back to the demo. Okay. So
There's a question.
GA at all, it was a preview, but do you have any idea when it will be finally available, or can't say that?
We don't have the final timelines that we can communicate as of now, but it's being worked through, and it will be communicated very, very soon on that one. Okay. So this is the My Apps screen, as you would already know. And this is the customer service hub application. Again, it's based on the unified interface stack as it shows over here. So if I open the unified interface-based CSH app, again, this is the tier 1 dashboard that we saw in Interactive Service Hub. The same would be available over here. You can have visual filters or global filters, more of an advanced filter capability, as we saw in the Interactive Service Hub as well. And it's also possible to have the traditional dashboards also show up in the Customer Service Hub app. So all the dashboards that we saw in the web client, the traditional web client, will also appear in the Customer Service Hub app now. We have a navigation on the left side wherein the agent can quickly navigate to the most important or relevant content. And we have shortcuts available for the agent. Let's say the agent wants to switch to cases. He can just quickly click on this icon and it will take him to the cases view. So if I open up a case record and show some of the enhancements over here, we have a timeline view. So there have been investments in enhancing the timeline control as well. I can search for information on this timeline by opening up the filter pane, and it will also give me a visual indication of what the timeline is composed of. And then I can apply additional filters over here. The business process flow can also be docked on the right side. So the agent can go ahead and navigate through different cases while the business process flow can remain docked on the right side. And this is the record navigation experience that we have in this interface. And as an agent, I can simply keep this open and quickly navigate to different records while on the screen itself. So that's just a quick preview of how this application would look like. More details will be covered by Linda in her session, which is dedicatedly covering the unified interface stack. The presenter's name is Linda Simovich. It talks about unification of user experiences. Yeah. Okay. With this, so this was about some of the new capabilities or enhancements that were done in the customer service functionality. Let's quickly take a look at the roadmap for customer service, how it looks like, where we plan to invest in the near future as a part of the roadmap. So again, aligned across the 3 different pillars that we talked about, omni-channel engagement, agent experience, intelligent service. So when it comes to omni-channel engagement, we'll continue to invest in it. The plan is that we'll invest in enabling voice and video capabilities next as a part of the omni-channel strategy. Bots for customer service, how we can enhance that experience, not just to assist the customers, but also to assist the agents when it comes to a bot-driven customer service engagement strategy. Routing, as we talked about in the strategy slide, how routing can be unified across different channels, how presence capabilities can be unified across different channels, and not just present siloed individually differently for specific channels. So the plan is to make investments around these areas. Agent experience, again, we saw the end user or the agent experience on the unified interface stack. The plan is to move the supervisor or the admin experience as well on the unified interface stack in the future. And that's an important roadmap item. Bots, we talked about agent performance insights. Again, how the agent is performing, how the agent is leveraging the application, and have insights into all of those to make improvements in the agent productivity in the entire customer support experience. So we'll be making investments around that category as well. Intelligent service, again, that's an important investment area for us. While we have taken a look at some of the intelligent capabilities that we already provide, some of the traditional KPIs like SLAs or dashboards, we'll also plan to invest in some of the intelligent KPIs. How we can leverage the customer intelligence or insights service in order to generate the customer context or the customer 360-degree view for the agent, which could be across different channels, interactions across different channels, and how it is most optimized so that it can be easily consumed by the agents and so on. Bot-driven engagement, not just for the customers, but also for the agents to assist. Channel guidance, how we can guide the customers from one channel to another. It need not just be escalation, it could be a warm transfer based on the customer preferences, based on how the customer has been interacting with the system and so on. Next issue, avoidance. So how we can detect, how we can preempt what the customer what kind of issue the customer would face next. So if a customer reaches out to the support organization, can we preempt the next issue that the customer could potentially face and try to address that proactively? So some of these investments we are looking at from an intelligent service perspective. Yep, I think that's about it. That's for the roadmap. Thanks for listening into this session, and it would be great if you can provide feedback on how the session went and evaluate.